Alexander the Great vs. Porus, the Battle of the Hydaspes. Part 4. Alexander the Great was one of history's most fierce warriors. He led his Macedonian army across continents, conquering many great cities and defeating countless armies. Yet despite his many victories, only one battle gave Alexander pause. It was a battle fought against an Indian king named Porus in 326 BC. The Battle of the Hydaspes has been romanticized by historians for centuries. Some have called it the greatest battle in history. Others say it was the greatest tactical victory ever. But what made the battle so special? What did the fighting actually look like? And why should we care about it today? To find out, let's travel back to ancient India. When Alexander reached the banks of the Hydaspes River, also known as the Bees, he thought he had finally found the end of the world. For thousands of years, this river had marked the edge of the known world, separating India from the rest of civilization. But now Alexander stood on the other side, ready to conquer the unknown. At least that's how it seemed. In reality, Alexander was clueless about what lay ahead. The land he had just crossed was ruled by a coalition of small states, none of which could resist the Macedonian onslaught. That is, until he reached the mighty King Porus. Porus ruled over the kingdom of Paurava, located in the Punjab region of India. Despite his small size, Porus was a formidable opponent. His army was composed of 30,000 infantry, 2,000 cavalry, and 200 war elephants. These war elephants were giants. They were specially trained to charge into battle, trampling enemy soldiers beneath their feet or knocking them down with their tusks. On the Macedonian side, they faced an elite force of 40,000 infantry, 8,000 cavalry, and 70 elephants. Although outnumbered, Porus refused to back down. He knew that if he didn't stand his ground, the Macedonians would keep marching east, plundering everything in sight. So he prepared for battle. On the banks of the Hydaspes, Alexander and Porus faced each other in a battle that has become legendary throughout history. The armies clashed, swords rang, and arrows flew through the air. As the fighting intensified, Alexander found himself locked in a desperate struggle. His army was losing ground. Seeing their leader in peril, the Macedonian soldiers rallied and managed to turn the tide of battle. Yet the Indian forces fought bravely, inflicting heavy casualties on the invaders. Alexander's brother, Philip, was killed in action, along with many of his other officers. Exhausted and wounded, Alexander ordered a retreat. During the chaos of the battle, he lost his trademark black warhorse, Bucephalus, and nearly lost his life when his horse was slain beneath him. According to Plutarch, Alexander managed to escape death when he quickly switched onto another horse that was captured earlier in the battle. Though initially victorious, Alexander's triumph was short-lived. After suffering heavy losses and realizing the logistical nightmare of continuing eastward, he opted to return home instead of chasing after Porus's retreating army. Alexander went on to conquer much of the Middle East before dying at the age of 32. Meanwhile, Porus survived the battle and continued to rule his kingdom. But how exactly did the Battle of the Hydaspes play out? Which side had the upper hand, and why do people still talk about it today? First, some context. During Alexander's time, warfare was very different than it is today. There were no tanks or fighter jets. Battles were fought with swords and spears. The objective was simple: defeat the enemy and take their land. This often involved pitched battles between two large armies. Today, warfare is more complex, with multiple fronts and unconventional weapons. Although there are still pitched battles, they are less common than in the past. This makes the Battle of the Hydaspes even more significant. It provides us with a rare glimpse into a bygone era of warfare. Now let's break down the battle itself. The first thing you need to understand is the terrain. The Battle of the Hydaspes took place near the confluence of the Bees and the Ravi rivers in the Punjab region of India. The area was open and flat, ideal for cavalry charges but not for infantry. This would be a problem for the Macedonians because they were used to fighting in tight formations, relying on their phalanx, a wall of spearmen that could easily fend off cavalry charges. But the wide open space at the Hydaspes meant that Alexander couldn't use his phalanx effectively. His soldiers were vulnerable to attack from all sides. The second thing you need to understand is the armies themselves. As we mentioned earlier, Alexander's army was larger than Porus's, but that didn't necessarily mean he had the advantage. For example, Porus's elephants were larger than Alexander's, and they were a formidable force in battle. Elephants have been used in warfare for centuries, and they are still being used today. In some parts of the world, they are big, strong, and can easily trample enemy soldiers. However, they are slow and can be vulnerable to arrows and other projectiles. The key to defeating war elephants is to get in close and then hit them with everything you got. That's what Porus's army tried to do. They charged into battle, unleashing a wave of tusks and trampling horses. But the Macedonians were ready for them. They formed a circle around the elephants, raining down arrows and spears until the beasts were dead. Then they charged forward, hacking the elephant riders to pieces. Eventually, all 200 of Porus's elephants were slain. Without their giant allies, the Indians were in trouble. The Macedonian cavalry swept through the battlefield, routing the infantry and sending them running for the hills. So why does everyone still talk about this battle? Well, there are 3 reasons. First, it shows how 2 different cultures clashed. The Macedonians were from Greece. Their culture was very different from that of the Indians. They believed in democracy and had a love for art and philosophy. The Indians were more autocratic and focused on spirituality and tradition. Second, it shows how 2 different types of armies fought. The Macedonians were heavily armored and relied on their phalanx to protect them. The Indians were lighter and more mobile, relying on their cavalry and elephants. Third, it shows how Alexander the Great lost his first major battle. He is often portrayed as invincible, but that's not true. He lost many battles throughout his career, but the Battle of the Hydaspes was his first. It was a wake-up call that made him realize he wasn't invincible. It also made him respect his opponents. After the battle, he reportedly treated Porus well and even offered him a chance to join his empire. When Porus refused, Alexander let him go free. Today, the site of the Battle of the Hydaspes is marked by a long mound near the confluence of the Bays and the Ravi rivers. A small plaque commemorates the battle and the warriors who fought here. The battle is also remembered in popular culture, such as in the Assassin's Creed Origins video game. Overall, the Battle of the Hydaspes was an important event in history. It marked the farthest Alexander the Great ever reached and gave us a rare glimpse into a bygone era of warfare. Thanks for watching.